I realized that I needed to make goals for my kids and for myself. Oh gosh, I tried to think of something I could shoot for. The only thing I can come up with is getting a small 2-bedroom cabin in the woods, in the mountains, away from everybody. I just don't think I'd be as angry up there. I don't think I'd be as frustrated with society up there. I don't think I would feel like I didn't fit in as much up there. I mean, I'm still in city boundaries, and so, I mean, I live in a place where there's a lot of trees, so it feels like I'm not in a city, which is good. I mean, there's a big airport right next to me. Not that big, it's a small airport, but I don't know, there's not a lot of flights out of it, so I don't really hear the engines of the airplanes as much, but I don't know. My job requires me to be close to cell towers so that I can get calls because I'm on call. But my ultimate place would be, if I didn't have to be on call all of the time, I'd go live in the mountains. Maybe get a couple little things that my kids could play with when they came. And as I got older, maybe, I don't know, maybe a snowmobile in the winter, or one of those little ATVs in the summer, I don't know. I feel like it's a lot simpler up there, and it's, I don't know, there's like no excuse for what, I don't know. There's like no delusions made by man, you know. You're not like getting bombarded by advertising and things. Just stupid stuff. Do you ever feel like you were born in the wrong time, right? Like you weren't supposed to be here, you know? I know, this is funny, I was talking to my part-time friend about this, but she's a millennial just like me. You know, I was born on the tail beginning of millennial. And I'm like, you know, a lot of crap is given to millennials, but where did they get it from? You know? Like, who was taught that stuff that taught their children these things? They didn't just, they weren't born with this desire to be self-entitled, right? Millennials were taught that from Generation X. If you want to blame somebody, you don't blame the millennials. You blame the parents of the millennials. What were they taught? You know, they were born in the 60s and 70s. A lot of change was happening. A lot of influence in their teenage years, right? A lot of drugs, a lot of, you know, be yourself. You deserve it. Type of influence. And guess what? Generation X had kids and they were millennials, and guess what they taught their kids? Oh. Who the freak is to blame? So a lot of crap is given to millennials, but I think it's undue. I think the real blame is the parents. Generation X. I feel like the baby boomers have an excuse, right? I don't know. Like, and I go and talk with a lot of them as a nurse, like, they just don't know. But Generation X, they have no excuses. They taught their children the wrong way, and guess what? Generation, you know, millennial is suffering for it. So there's hope for Generation Z because we're teaching our children to be better than we are. So screw you, Generation X, for teaching us the wrong thing. For teaching us that we're self-entitled, that we deserve more than we should have, that we need to work for it. Because you are the real problem. And nobody acknowledges that. Nobody acknowledges that Generation X was really the one to blame. They were the ones that were given everything, and then they taught their children that they could have everything. And guess what? That's just not the case. It's a bunch of bull crap fed to us. And so we grow up thinking that we deserve all of this stuff, but reality, we can't obtain it. And guess what happens? There is a plague, just overwhelming plague of depression because of you. So yeah, feel the guilt, feel the pain, because we are feeling it every day because of you. Every day we have our failures because you taught us that we deserve everything without work. And I don't know. You can blame social media, but social media didn't hit until 2004, man. Like, it was taught to us when we were 2 and 3 and 4. This was back in the late 80s and the 90s during maybe the Reagan era, when things were really good. And guess what? Our parents taught us that we deserve everything. And it was the wrong thing to teach us. And who's suffering for it now? We are. We're having to realize that we can't get everything. That it's all a lie and that less is more. But will anybody realize that? No. Nobody cares. Nobody likes to hear that less is more. Nobody likes that. Nobody, it's not enticing. It's enticing to hear that you make more, you get more, it's better for the economy, and you feel happier, but it's not true. Take away all of that, and you can be happier. I'm only not happy because of my brain. Yes, it's partially a choice, but with an ADHD brain, you just feel perpetually depressed. If you don't have stimulation, you are in a depressed state. You just are. That's your normal. That's your base. That's your normal. I don't know. Anyway, couple that with Generation X's dogma, and you get a crap shoot, whatever you want to call it. All sorts of swear words, right? Terrible combination. You think you're going to be something you're not, and you never obtain that, and guess what? That's the truth. There are people that do obtain it, but they are the lucky few. They just thrown in a hat, and they just happen to be the one that picked the lottery and get chosen out. The rest have to suffer. And even the people that get chosen have to suffer too. It's just a facade. Anyway, gosh. Okay, that's my rambling. Nobody should believe anything that I just said. It's just a bunch of bullcrap, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's what I feel like is happening. That's what I feel has happened to our generation from 1983 till whenever Generation Z hit. That's what happened to the millennials, and everybody's complaining about them. But really, who's to blame? It's the parents. Please know that it's not all of your fault. And it's not all your parents' fault either, right? It's just groupthink and society as a whole, and where we're going as a society where everybody feels pressured to think as a whole, as one big entity, and that's not always the right decision. It's not always good for society to think the same way. We thrive as a society because we think differently. Nobody gets that. Nobody wants to hear that. Everybody just feels pressured to say the same things, to do the same things, and to not raise their voice. And that's a shame.